Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna do a really important video, something that's very meaningful to me, and we're gonna talk about my top tips on how to get over a breakup. Guys, guess who's coming in? It's the time! You can't leave me, I love you.
Thank you.
So before we get started, I just want to remind you guys to please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up and share it if you enjoy it, and make sure to comment below all of your feedback, your questions. I would love to know what you guys think. I really wanted to create this video because as a really emotional, sensitive person, breakups have always been really hard for me. And when I look back at like my early 20s, my late teens, and my entire life until very recently, I used to be really bad at getting through breakups. And I wish somebody made a video like this for me like 10, 15 years ago. It could have been a life changer. If you are going through something like this, hopefully these tips will help you get through it a lot faster and easier, and hopefully you'll just understand yourself better. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with one of my #1 tips, which is make the decision that it's over. I think one of the things that makes all of us kind of go crazy is not knowing whether or not it's a final decision. And in my opinion, I think that's even worse than breaking up. Like when you're kind of on the fence of wondering if it's the right person to be with, or trying to make things work when it's not really working, that is sometimes torturous. So I think come to the conclusion, do you want to stay with this person and make it work? Yes or no? And finally, just decide together or separately. And if the person's not trying to make it work with you, you already know your answer, it's over. It takes 2 people to make a relationship work. So make the decision that you're ready to start working on healing and moving on. So for the next tip, I want to recommend to you guys to process your feelings. I think it's really important not to deny how you're feeling. And for myself, I usually recommend journaling, writing things down, writing things out, or speaking to a really good friend that you trust. But tell people or someone, or even if it's just yourself, say how you feel and just get it out. Because sometimes when we keep feelings inside, we either try to like pretend we don't care, or we try to lie to ourselves. And I think that gets in the way of healing. If you don't feel your feelings, they stay inside forever and you can never really move on. So for me personally, I found that when I was finally just being more honest with myself about how I am feeling, I was able to move on from those feelings and grow from the situation I was in. So process your feelings, write it out, understand why you feel a certain way, explain to yourself like, okay, if I'm feeling sad, why am I sad? Did I really feel attached to that person? What am I holding on to? Am I confused? Like every feeling there is, just like question what it is that you actually are feeling in the moment, and write it and get it out. And that leads on to my next tip, which is to get therapy. I have to say, personally, I only started getting therapy about 1.5 years ago, and it was so life-changing for me. And it was, yeah, 1.5 years ago, I was like, how old was I? I was 34 when I started, or 35? I can't remember, but I was in my mid-30s, and wait, I'm 35 now. I sometimes forget how old I am. But anyways, the point is, like, I wish so badly that I got it in my late teens. Like, I really encourage starting therapy as soon as you can, and especially when you're going through something as traumatic as a breakup, because it really is a big deal to people who are actually, you know, emotional and actually liked or loved a person. You know, it's a grief. It's like you really need to get over the, I don't want to say death, but like the death of something. It's like you have to understand that something that you had, a commitment that you had, a relationship that you had is now over, and you need to like go through the stages of grief. So my recommendation is get the therapy. You know, prior to myself getting therapy, I used to take forever to get over things, like literally years. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It would take me years to get over things. But as soon as I started following these steps and just understanding why I felt a specific way, just made it so much easier to move on. Not to sound cold-hearted, but I feel like once you just understand why you're going through something or what happened, it just makes it a lot easier. So the next tip that I recommend, and you might even go through this with your therapist depending on the therapist that you speak to, but it would be to make a list of all the things that you liked about the relationship and the person, and also the things you didn't like. But I think start with the things that you liked, because I think that's very telling of what you're looking for and also what you were attached to. So be really, really honest with yourself, because sometimes it will also explain to you what you feel is missing in your life. Like, I remember, you going through one of my lists that I was making for someone that I was talking to, I was just like lining out the things that I really liked, things that made me feel special. And, sometimes it's just like, oh, I like the attention. Well, does that mean you're not getting enough attention in certain areas of your life? Are you, are there blockages that you have? Do you need to go out more? Do you need to like socialize more? Like understand what it is that you're holding on to. Sometimes it's just like you enjoy good company. Well, do you need to see your friends more? Do you need to make better relationships in other areas of your life? Like what is it that was so meaningful to you that you really want? And figure that out, because it'll tell you what your goals are. It'll tell you what's important to you. It'll tell you what to look for in the next partner too. And the same thing goes for making a list of what you didn't like in that person, because I think understanding what didn't work is so important. And I really, the biggest believer in making lists. And I think if you don't write it out, sometimes you just forget so fast what bothered you. So I'm a believer in making lists after the relationship, but even during, like if you can keep your notes, and that's something that I do now, like I keep notes on things that I like and what I don't like, and I check in with myself regularly. It just helps you stay on track of like keeping up with your feelings, because we forget so fast, especially when it comes to falling in love. We halo affect the person. We sometimes just disregard all the things that we would be aware of if we didn't have the feelings. So keep track, keep notes, and use that to reflect. So for the next tip, I'd like to recommend for you to make a list of all the mistakes you made. You can also make a list of the mistakes your partner made, but I think start with yourself first. And again, be super brutally honest with yourself. And I think no matter what, even if you think you were perfect in a relationship, sometimes those mistakes can be ignoring red flags or not being confrontational when like things didn't go very well and like there are things that you should have addressed. I mean, I know those are my mistakes for the most part. Sometimes it's picking the wrong partner. And again, I think after reflecting and seeing what you liked and what you didn't like, you can kind of assess whether or not you were really compatible with the person and whether you were with them just because of, the butterfly feelings that you get in the beginning of a relationship. But write your mistakes and like be super honest with yourself and talk about it with like one of your bestest friends who's really honest with you and someone who will keep it real with you, because they'll probably keep you in check and they'll probably be honest with you too and say, yeah, I think you could have done that better. Ask people who are really close to you, like, what do you think I could have done better? What do you think I do wrong in relationships? Because most likely you have your own pattern in your life. Like whatever you do wrong in your romantic relationships might be what you're doing wrong in your personal relationships, your friendships, your family, and possibly work. So we as humans are quite consistent and we have the patterns we have because we haven't broken them yet. So figure out what your mistakes are. And I think if you do actually keep it real with yourself, you'll get some confidence from realizing those mistakes to move on. Like for me personally, when I realized all the mistakes I made in my past relationships, and I did this for every guy I ever dated, I was like, let me map it out. And I did this recently, probably 4 or 5 months ago, and I was like, let me map out all my mistakes I've made in the past. And when I saw all of the mistakes I made, it gave me so much more excitement for the future, because I was like, wow, I actually had a big hand in all my failures. Where before I was kind of victimizing myself and kind of blaming all these guys and saying they were crazy and like, I was victimizing myself. I was like, I felt so bad for myself almost, and I was like, and that's demotivating. When you are playing the victim, you don't take responsibility, you think you have no control. But when you realize your mistakes are your own, you empower yourself to move on. And it's actually really exciting. When I saw like that was all my mistakes, I was like, I am ready. I am ready to start dating. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to meet somebody new. And I might still make more mistakes, and that's fine, but I know that I'm in a better place than I used to be because I had no awareness before. So listing things out makes a huge, huge difference. For my next tip, this is something that I recently started following as well. I really recommend for you to cut all ties with your ex. I never used to do that before. I always used to stay friends with people, and I always wanted to just keep them in my life because I didn't want to kind of grieve that I had no more contact or a relationship with that person anymore. But recently I've just realized that just drags things on so long, and sometimes it makes things sticky. It sometimes makes you want to get back with a person and try working things out. And honestly, I just think that for at least 3 months, maybe 6 months, depending on how long you were with the person, you need to cut them off. Like, I recommend blocking them on social media, block their number, just cut all ties. And I know that seems a bit extreme, but I do feel it's the best thing to do if you want to move forward and heal and just like move on. And again, that comes back to tip number 1, where it's like, decide, do you want to move on? Yes or no? And if you want to, just do what you need to do. And even if that's a bit selfish, just do it if you need to, because you've now decided you want to move on. Remove all contact, no social media, no phone number, no WhatsApp, no nothing. Just remove all of the contact from that person. And if you had similar circles or you went to the similar places, go to new places. The world is huge. There's lots of people. There's so much to do. You don't need to keep going back to the same old places. Learn something new, and you'll probably meet somebody new if you change your environment and change your routine. So mix it up and just, yeah, cut all contact. So the next thing that I recommend to do, which kind of relates to cutting contact, is to change all your habits in your routine. Whether your habits were, every Friday morning we go get breakfast, every night we have, we watch movies together, we have dinner, like intentionally put something in your calendar to replace that time that you had with that person. Because I think one of the hardest things to do going through a breakup is like having an emptiness and like a void. So I think it's really important to make sure you fill your time, your space with something that's really fulfilling, really fun, exciting, and also, ideally with somebody that you also really enjoy their company. So whether it's a best friend, family members, or new people that you just want to see, just fill your calendar with new things to do, because you don't want to just be moping around and being like, oh, well, I used to go have breakfast with this person every morning, or like I used to spend every night talking to this person. Like, fill that with something new. And it doesn't have to be with another person. It could also be like, I'm going to listen to a podcast every night at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or I'm going to go to a class at this time, or I'm going to watch a documentary I love, or a movie that I like, whatever, a series. But fill that time, like fill the void, because having the void is really tough. And same thing goes for like if you used to stalk the person you're with or your ex and you're now trying to get over them. Like, instead of going to their profiles, even though you should have blocked them by now, if you haven't, like every time you remember you want to like check out their profile, make a really intentional effort to check something else. Like maybe you could be like, you know what, I'm obsessed with perfume. I'm gonna go Google perfume every time I think of that person. Or if it's like fashion, I'm gonna Google fashion or check a Pinterest board on something that you're obsessed with and that you're passionate about. Or maybe it's another person, like just replace the habit that you had with the other person with something else. I recommend it being a hobby. Like for me personally, in the past, I was like, every time I think I want to go check that person's profile, I'm gonna actually look up a really inspiring quote, or I'm gonna look up a really cool trend. I'm gonna keep myself really excited and busy and motivated with something else that inspires me. And it's gonna be intentional, because the hardest thing is breaking a habit without replacing it with a new one. You need to replace it with a new habit. Another thing I like to do is just Pinterest. Like, I love going on my Pinterest boards when I have free time, or when I'm thinking about something too much. When I go to Pinterest, I just get lost, and I could pin for hours. And then before you know it, you realize that so much time has gone by and you didn't even go back to thinking about what you were thinking about. So I definitely think to break a habit, you need to replace it with a new one. So for the next tip, I really recommend for you to make another list and lay out what you're looking for in a partner. This can be everything down to like the qualities that you value, to similar life goals that you have and that you want that person to have, and really map out everything. The more details you can put, the better, because it just gives you a better idea of what you want to attract. And even if you don't find somebody who has like 100% of those qualities, if you find somebody with 70 and above, amazing, but I think mapping it out is so important. I was actually having a session with my therapist the other day, and she was like, okay, well, what are you looking for? And I'm like, oh, of course, everybody knows what you're looking for. And actually you don't. If you don't map it out, you cannot think that it's already in your head properly, or you even know what you want. You need to like list it out in detail to get really specific, because if it's all up here, it's really hard to make it solid. Put it in writing. Whether it's like journaling it out or making a note, it really makes you have a lot more clarity, and it makes it more obvious to yourself. I also think just from like a manifesting point of view, it makes it more easy to manifest that person. You can list things that are super basic, like things like looks and things like that are kind of like superficial, or go all the way into like the core values, the deep life meanings that they have and they want out of life, like what's their mission statement, their personality, like what they like to do for fun, what their family goals are, what their career goals are, you know, everything. You know, I would list out all the qualities that you like, and you could do both. I mean, I usually don't focus on the superficial parts because I'm like, I don't want to limit what I'm going to attract into my life. Like, I don't care about nationality, age, money, looks. I don't care about those things, but it's more about like the core deepness that you can't really, I think those are what you should be choosy about, you know, everything else shouldn't really matter in my opinion, but list it out and create a vision board. Like I have a Pinterest board, you know, of things that I'm looking for, and even put out like ideas, like date ideas that you want them to come up with and experiences that you want to have. And you'll be so surprised if you keep doing this. And again, like maybe replace that habit of all the time you think about that person to just pinning what you want your new relationship to look like. And you'll be so surprised on how fast it starts to come into your life. You just have to keep up the work. And when you're doing this exercise of like listing out the values that you're looking for, it is really important that you know what your own core values are too. Funny enough, I actually just started doing this exercise with one of my life coaches the other day because we were talking about boundaries and values and how they're so related. And I was like, well, don't we all have the same values? And she was like, absolutely not. So she gave me an exercise of listing out like all the values there are. And the best way to find out what your core values are, and we can do another video on this because there's a lot to say, but it's just like figuring out what excites you and also what triggers you. And those are probably going to tell you what your values are, but understand yourself first, and then you can understand what kind of partner you need, because you need someone who shares the same values as you. So my next tip is to get a makeover, which I think you should do all the time anyway, because even if you're not going through a breakup, that's like the funnest thing to do. And just do a full-on makeover if you can. You know, do your hair, change your makeup, change, you know, get some new clothes, spoil yourself a little bit. And if you can do a photo shoot too. I think it's really important, like getting some new photos, getting your glam on, and all of that can be one of the best confidence boosters when you're going through a rough time. And yeah, from my own experiences, every time I do that, I just feel like a new woman, and it's exciting, you know, it's really exciting. So pamper yourself, get a makeover, take some hot photos, and just have fun. Which comes to my last and final tip: have fun. Make a fun list of the things that really excite you and make you enjoy yourself, and do those things intentionally. Like really prioritize having fun for the next few months, 3 to 6 months, because you really need to excite yourself again. Going through a breakup is hard, and if you want to get through it faster, you really need to make yourself feel good. And a lot of us don't realize how important it is to prioritize fun. I mean, I haven't for most of my life until recently. And I think just knowing what you like to do for fun, what excites you, what makes you feel like a kid inside, just figure out what it is, make a list, and do it. Just spoil yourself, give yourself the love that you're looking for, and you'll be so surprised at how fast you can change how you feel. And I really think, you know, I used to think that going through a breakup meant that you needed to take time to get over it, like years. But truthfully, it all depends on the work that you do. If you do the work, you can get through it so much faster and stronger, and you can move on a lot quicker. And honestly, there's no reason to drag it out. I used to want to drag it out because I was like, oh, I felt like I was an insincere person if I just wanted to move on super quick. But that's not true. There's no reason to inflict pain on yourself and like take so much time to move on, unless it's like you haven't learned the lessons yet. But do the work and you're gonna learn a lot faster, and hopefully you'll meet the right person faster. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I know I blabbered on quite a bit. This is a topic I'm really passionate about, and again, I just wanted to create this video for you guys because I've struggled with this so many times throughout my life, and I just really think that if people had more awareness on the easier tips to just help yourself get through things, you'd realize it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it sometimes. For my quote of the day, I actually wrote this: understanding your feelings is the only way you're able to choose your feelings. And this just comes from my thoughts of like my own experiences of processing my feelings and understanding how when you process your feelings and you understand them, it really makes it so much easier to change how you feel and choose how you want to feel. So process yourself, understand yourself, and you'll most likely be able to choose being happy, to choose being excited. So I hope this helped, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with whoever you think needs a pick-me-up or someone going through a rough time, and please comment down below your feedback and any tips that I forgot. I'm sure there's plenty, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Love you all so much.